There is a passionate debate between those who think the rapture will occur before the tribulation and those who think Christians will have to endure that time. This debate has been ongoing for decades, so you'd think every Bible passage that discusses the rapture would be well understood by now. But this video discusses one that has been neglected. 2 Thessalonians is a letter from Paul to the believers in Thessalonica who are undergoing very intense persecution for their faith. And this persecution was so bad, they began to wonder if perhaps the day of the Lord had begun. Paul answered their questions in this brief letter. The second chapter is well known and the source of ongoing debate. However, the first chapter, which introduces the letter, is almost always ignored. But it shouldn't be. The Thessalonians were interested in knowing when they were going to get relief from their persecution. Paul gave them an answer, which probably wasn't the answer they wanted to hear. They were probably hoping to hear that they'd get relief like next week, but Paul indicated that real relief won't happen until Jesus returns. Paul indicates that tribulation or persecution should be considered the standard condition of Christian life. But in his answer, Paul also gives us proof of rapture timing. So let's look at his answer closely. Paul's answer contains two whats and a when. Two things are going to happen at that same time. First, the persecutors are going to have the tables turned on them. God is going to pour out his wrath on them. Second, those who have been persecuted are going to get relief. Now, what is the relief that happens when Jesus returns? Why, it's the rapture, of course. Both of these things are going to take place when Jesus is revealed from heaven. Revealed means to be made visible. Now, pre-tribulationists will say this is when believers see Jesus at the pre-tribulational rapture. Those believers see him, but no one else does. But the very next line makes that impossible because that revealing is in flaming fire. Jesus and his angels are not being revealed in flaming fire until the time that they cast that fire upon the earth and burn it up in God's wrath. Now, no pre-tribulational scholar believes that happens immediately after a pre-tribulational rapture. All of them believe the fire is cast upon the earth toward the end of what they call the tribulation period. So pre-tribulationists have a problem here, a real problem. And if you read this passage carefully, Paul also wrote, as to us as well. He is telling us that he and his companions will get relief on the same day that Jesus is revealed in flaming fire. Now, Paul is dead, the Thessalonians are dead. There is only one way they can all receive relief on that same day. They have to be resurrected to receive that relief. So this has to be the day that the resurrection and the rapture happens. The dead in Christ, like Paul, will rise first. Then all who have survived will be caught up into the air. All of this happens on the day Jesus is revealed with his angels in flaming fire. You can see why pre-tribulationists would neglect this passage. So let me state it again so it sinks in. The rapture occurs immediately before the angels cast fiery judgment on the earth. And there isn't one pre-tribulational scholar who believes that happens at the beginning of the tribulation. Not one. That is why this passage is neglected. It disproves the pre-tribulation rapture. And this chapter 1 that we've been looking at doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is the context for the more controversial 2 Thessalonians 2. In fact, in the original letter, there were no chapter divisions. This passage directly flows out of chapter 1 that we just looked at. So when Paul says the coming of Jesus, our Messiah, he's referring back to a verse or two to the revealing of Jesus in flaming fire. They're the same thing. And when he says, are being gathered together to him, he is referring back to the relief of the living and the dead that happens at the resurrection and rapture, all of which takes place when Jesus is visibly seen coming on the clouds. Chapter 2 and chapter 1 are both about the same event. Paul then assures the Thessalonians that the day of the Lord, this singular event, the coming of Jesus in flaming fire, and the resurrection and rapture that happens at the same time, hadn't already taken place, and won't take place until two things occur: the revealing of the Antichrist and the rebellion or apostasy, which is the coming great falling away from the faith. And what is this event? Why Jesus spoke of it? It's Matthew 24:30 through 31, of course. First, notice Jesus told us it is the revealing, when his sign appears and everyone on earth sees him. And that revealing is in great glory, or flaming fire, as Paul put it. And there are angels who are summoned with a trumpet. And just as in 2 Thessalonians 2:1, there is a gathering together. The living and dead believers are gathered together at this point. In fact, the same Greek root word, episynago, is used here and in 2 Thessalonians 2:1. It is obvious that when Paul wrote 2 Thessalonians, he had this passage of Jesus in mind. An event that Jesus tells us occurs after Great Tribulation, Matthew 24:29. It is not a pre-tribulation rapture. So I am sure most of you are flabbergasted. How can this be? And you're probably wondering what to do about it now you've just seen it. The answer is share it on the net and discuss it with your pre-tribulational friends. Then even more importantly, share it with your pastor, or better yet, your entire pastoral staff. See what explanations they have about this short video. And even better yet, send it to the leaders of your denomination and ask them for their opinions. Jesus is truth. He wants you to know it, and he wants them to know it as well.